Imagine a vibrant discussion between people that includes both openness and critical thought in the pursuit of truth. The Purchasing Truth podcast is an experience, a journey, an exploration of the impact that negative messages in politics and the media have on our families, community, society, and nation. Join your hosts, Bill Stierle and Tom Hazard, to discover new concepts and language strategies that will reveal effective ways of establishing truth. This podcast series will tackle current events, leadership challenges, healthcare confusion, integrity in business, and many other areas that affect us all. Gain clarity and understanding of the various truth perspectives. Welcome to Purchasing Truth.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Purchasing Truth. I'm Tom Hazard along with Bill Stierle. And Bill, you're in a different location than usual.
I am at my office location where I'm doing a mediation later this afternoon, where we're going to be working through conflict and reducing the amount of arguments between two people and using language to facilitate that. And that's a big part of how to handle truth, because Tom, you and I have been talking about how perspective and perception is easily changed by word choices. And all you got to do is have the wrong word in there, and you got to, all of a sudden you're going like, how did it go sideways all of a sudden? Like, yeah. So all you got to do is have the one word. So the problem what happens is the goalpost gets moved just by word selection.
I agree. It does. I mean, I think that, there's so many examples in our current political culture or in our country, discussions and climate going on where, things keep happening that have never happened before, that are breaking the norms, right? And that people would have thought would have never happened in a civil society, right? And it may be even be getting to the point where people are no longer shocked because there have been so many shocking things that have happened.
Right.
So the perspective you're talking about, I think, is very, very true.
Here's a great example, Tom.
Yeah.
A very simple sentence. A person asks about, have you told this person about this change, about what's going to take place? And this other person says, yeah, I talked to that person and I told them that nothing's going to be changing. The person immediately says, wait a minute, nothing's going to change? The other person says, well, what I meant to say was that this one little thing wasn't going to change, but they were only asking about this little thing. The other person says, well, there's a lot of things that are going to change. And the person goes, I know there's a lot of things that are going to change. The word nothing, the word always, the word never, they are very dangerous words in our current society, because they're painted as absolutes and as global narratives of truth. And the answer is, they're just not.
Well, and it also becomes such an invitation to the fact checkers, doesn't it?
It does. It gets the person, well, the person said nothing was going to change, and that wasn't fully true. So, for example, if Obama says the sentence, you don't have to change your doctor, is he really in control of not changing the person's doctor? No. Well, doctors move in and out of different insurance qualifications all the time.
That's
now,
true.
Is he a liar? Or is he generally speaking about, you get a lot of choice inside this system? Can I keep my doctor? I don't know about your doctor because your doctor could be moving to another state. Your doctor could be changing from this insurance plan to this insurance plan. And quite frankly, the government has no control over that one at this time. Do you really want, no, I want choice. I want my old doctor. Well, you can't, you might not be able to have your old doctor because
Well, but that was the last thing he would have said there, because he was setting the vision for the plan and trying to meet everybody's need for safety and security in their insurance if they were happy with their insurance. He was trying to make it so that people who didn't need the Affordable Care Act, who didn't need new insurance, were happy with the current system, would have some security that the government wasn't going to come and, turn everything on its head.
great explanation, Tom. And I'm going to give you a tragic sentence.
No, I knew. All right. Lay it on me.
One person's vision becomes another person's lie.
Okay. Well, I could relate to that because I hear a lot of visionary statements coming out of the current president that I think are a lie.
Well done, Tom. So, so what happens is that one person's vision becomes another person's lie. He's lying to us. But he ain't lying to us. He's setting a vision. He's talking generally. I particularly like the Fox host that says he doesn't lie. What he does is he just expands and then spins. Expands and then spins. Yeah, he's not lying. He's just exaggerating. No, that was the correct quote. He exaggerates and spins. Well, exaggeration is different than not accurately doing a fact. And then the idea is how much margin of a fact you get to push as you're trying to get somebody into a vision. At this point, if we really wanted to fact check, some of the leaders, then we would have never been able to adapt an automobile as a vehicle, because horses and carriages, everybody knows that horses and buggies are the way that transportation is done. Or let me pick the big failure of the railroad industry. We're just doing railroad. No, you are not in the railroad business. You are in the human transportation business. And if you don't get a hold of it, the cars are going to take over and they're going to make your railroads obsolete, which is what happened.
Or I'll take it back one step further. The Erie Canal, which at the time it was built was pre the locomotive and the train. And by the way, I have to geek out for just a moment here, because those of you that live in New York State and your state slogan is the Empire State, do you know why it's called the Empire State, Bill? I'm going to be a little bit of Cliff Clavin on you here from Cheers, okay? I don't often do this, but it's not called the Empire State because of the Empire State Building. I'll tell you that. In fact, the Empire State Building is named after the Empire State, and the Empire State is named the way it was because in its day, I think it's like early 1800s, right? The Erie Canal was built, and it was the highway for transportation between the Atlantic Ocean, the Hudson River, and into the Great Lakes, Lake Erie, right? So it was a highway, and it was called the gateway to the Empire of the West. That's why it's called the Empire State. So anyway, but the Erie Canal took so long to build. All these lock systems, and these barges move very slow because oxen would pull them that are walking on the land, pulling these barges on the water, and that was fast. That was like state-of-the-art technology of the day in the early 1800s. And here comes the railroad and just blows that out of the water, pardon the pun, the canal system, just absolutely eclipsed it, and the Erie Canal became this very expensive monument, tribute to the past.
Wow.
So anyway, all right, we don't often go down a tangent like that on Purchasing Truth.
You know why I like this tangent so much? You know why I like this tangent?
Yeah.
It's because technology is doing the same thing to us right now. messing with communication so badly that it's hard to know what the truth is. And quite frankly, it's terrifying people. When people get scared and terrified, it's not because there's a real danger. What they're really terrified with is their certainty about belief, about their beliefs are changing. I want to scare somebody and I shift their belief, something I knew was true. If I just did this, I would then get that. And then I change that rule. It terrifies somebody because it destabilizes the person.
Okay, so uncertainty is a real, what would we call it? Well, how would we describe it? Uncertainty is, well, I guess people fear it.
It affects the physiology of the body. That's correct. Uncertainty affects, and if I've got a skilled marketing person or a skilled snake oil salesperson or a skilled person that sells used cars or a skilled person that sells real estate or a skilled person that messages things on social media or a skilled government that propagates social media with messages that hook or play into my beliefs regarding stability and certainty, then you know what? I don't want Hillary Clinton to be president because she's sick all the time. She's sick all the time. Yeah, did you see the pictures on the internet? She had the flu. She didn't look so good. Did you see those pictures? She didn't look so good. Remember during the election, she didn't look so good. Well, why didn't she look so good? Is because those pictures affected the need for certainty and stability about her health and well-being. Was it true? No. Did she get the flu? Yes. Did she faint a little bit? Yes. Did she get overworked? Yes.
Yeah. Was she exhausted one particular day and might have tripped a little bit getting into a vehicle? Yes. And unfortunately, the cameras saw it, and that's all anybody could talk about. And then the candidate Trump at the time labels her, and to me, this was such a sexist label, is that he said she doesn't have the stamina to be president.
Yeah.
That was how he labeled it, and without saying other things he probably really believed and personally would have said if it was in private. That's what he said publicly.
You know what? Great moment in the field of time, because in the debate, you don't have the stamina. Notice her comeback to that stamina thing was a monologue about testifying for 11 hours, about flying to different countries, about doing X, Y, and Z. And notice none of that stuck.
No, it was explanation, wasn't it?
Correct. Her best response would have been, oh, stamina. You mean like sticking with things. You mean like when you work through something with a group of people and lead them. Oh, you mean the times that I've worked through and got a group of people to move to do things. Oh, the thing that you don't have. The thing that you don't do is what you don't have because you don't work good with people and you really don't lead, and so therefore you don't have the stamina. She didn't even know that it was a turnaround question. It was not a I'm going to prove you wrong. One of the number one things that candidates make the problem on is they keep trying to prove the accusation false. One of the things that we're learning by this president is he never tries to prove something false or true.
No.
He just says the same thing over and over again until it sticks.
Until it's all anybody knows and hears, And what was it? We referenced one point this town hall meeting in Michigan with and I can't remember his name. It's been so long now, but the representative for Michigan who is not a fan of the president, one of his constituents being interviewed after he pulled back the curtain on the reality of how the president has committed crimes, according to the Mueller report. And this woman said, I had no idea there was anything bad in the Mueller report, because that's all she hears, whether it's from the president or from the Fox News cheerleaders, to label them a little bit. That's all she hears. And you're right. If it's all she hears, that's what sticks.
That's correct. That's correct. See, the town hall meeting, when done well, is really a dissemination of knowledge in trying to broaden the person's perspective, the perception. And when we do that well, what winds up happening is the information is done in such a way that we're not trying to explain something, but what you're trying to do is set the vision for. The Justin Amash thing, I think that was his name.
Thank you. That's his name, Bill. Yes.
That was his name. What he did, the wonderful thing he did, is very clearly, this is the vision of what integrity looks like, and he's not doing integrity. This is what the law looks like, and because we're from Grand Rapids or wherever he's from,
yeah, that is it.
And because we're here, we want integrity with the law, and he's not doing it, no matter what anybody else says. Are we going to believe our law enforcement, or are we going to believe the messaging that's coming in our direction? Wonderful job, because he's now off there and he's building his narrative around integrity. And then it goes better.
Well, and that is respectable regardless of your political, ideology or beliefs. I mean, I think integrity, it's refreshing, I guess, to see, to me anyway, if I could say that. But what's very disheartening, Bill, is that we've seen very much more recently now, coming sort of fast forwarding to the present, is that, we had these hearings of the House Judiciary Committee yesterday, and Corey Lewandowski is interviewed, who was the campaign, what do you call him? Chairman, manager? He ran the campaign.
Campaign manager. Yeah.
Manager for the Trump campaign at one point. And he's been brought in by subpoena or to be testified before the House Judiciary Committee. And there are these laws on the books about executive privilege. And executive privilege, at least as I understood it, and I think most have understood it, would apply to communication the president of the United States has with some of his staff or any of the, upper executives in government. They need to be able to have free conversations and not worry that, somebody could be called in to testify. But here's somebody who was not a member of the cabinet and never had conversations with the president of the United States, but had conversations with a candidate for president of the United States, brought in and asked questions about it. And the White House is citing executive privilege, and he's refusing to answer questions. And the Justice Department, of course, is backing up the president in, telling Corey Lewandowski that he shouldn't talk about certain things. But there seems to be no authority here that can keep this goalpost from being moved. Where executive.
Would you like to hear how I would have done it?
I would love to hear if you were. What is it, Jerry Nadler? Is that his name? Who's the head of the chairman of the committee?
The way I would have done it if I was in charge of it is that I already knew what he had said and what he was under oath. So I don't need him to say what was under oath. But what I do need him to say is to own the good reasons why he is not being honest. That's what I want him to do, is I want him to own that.
Wow.
So that's a different approach. That approach should be completely different. And if all of the different people that regrettably, politicians are not talented. They're not talented investigators, and they're not talented lawyers unless they were a previous lawyer. They're not talented at question asking. They're not really particularly good. Okay.
Yeah.
They are good at promoting a vision enough to get elected.
Sure.
They are good at repeating a message consistently. in order to get elected, but they're not particularly good when it comes to speaking truth or even questioning about truth. So if I was Jerry Nadler, I would have probably started about this way, the hearings with the following sentence. Mr. Lewandowski, I'm guessing that you really feel irritated and a part of you really doesn't want to be here testifying. Is that correct?
And he would say, yes, I'm sure. Somehow he would respond in the affirmative.
And I'm guessing you might be feeling annoyed and aggravated because you really have a need for privacy with the president. And therefore, it's going to be very difficult for you to answer some of our questions. Am I guessing that right?
Yes.
And I'm also guessing that you might be feeling angry because your need for respect for the president has not been met by the way the media has treated it, as well as the pursuit that Congress is after in order to investigate the issues that you're being invited on. Is that correct? You really want privacy and respect for the president?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, Mr. Lewandowski, we're going to do the best we can so you can keep the privacy you would like with the president, at the same time as looking for the truth that we would like so the American public can have your viewpoint being spoken fully. Would that be okay with you?
Yes, I think he'd have to say yes, wouldn't he?
He does, because he's got to, I just put both of the things on the hook. Notice the limitations of communication that are unavailable to these practitioners, these elected officials. They're not really strong. And it's the same on the campaign trail. It's the same thing. You know, Bernie Sanders has his limitations, as well as Joe Biden has his limitations on how they speak about honesty and how they tell stories and how they create and build enrollment about what they would like to see. And whereas Elizabeth Warren is coming and moving to more of the head of the pack because she's going like, there's this word called corruption that has its root in integrity. And we're not getting that right now. You may want to vote for me if you would like to get that. Very simple message, and then you can build your narrative around that.
Sounds like a step in the right direction.
It is. It's a step in the right direction. So it's not a flashpoint moment, but what it is a congruent moment, which is something similar to what Barack Obama did. Is he kept setting positive narratives of leadership right next to each other, where he was cultivating trust all along the way. And then everyone else was following him. John McCain was following him. Mitt Romney was following him. They didn't know what to do because he kept cultivating the next message of trust. He kept cultivating the next vision, the next message of truth behind the vision that he could lead, not the vision that he had of policy. It's kind of good that Elizabeth Warren got all the policy stuff. I have a plan for that out of the way, because actually now all she's got to do is talk about vision from here on out, whereas everyone else is talking about, well, my policy is a little different than hers. It's like, who gives a crap? I want to know if you can lead or not.
And I want to know if you can have a conversation with Trump and not get your truth purchased. Just saying.
Right.
I mean, seriously, this really concerns me. These people all need communication skills and to learn how to not take the bait.
Right.
And argue on the facts. And you know, you mentioned a lot of them are lawyers, and they are. A lot of them are lawyers, and they're very black and white thinkers. I was thinking about this actually this morning as I was driving and hearing some quote of one of the politicians and realizing, well, yeah, they are like lawyers. They're very black and white thinkers. But then in some ways, what's shocking is that while lawyers are black and white thinkers, and it's either, against the law or in alignment with the law, at the same time, they seem to be able to argue any side of any argument they want, and in this roundabout creative way. So that to me was a little ironic.
Good. So what you're really working on right now is the plasticity of language and the plasticity of vocabulary. Because if I'm talking about the word plan, Tom, there are 4 different active definitions for the word plan. If I say, Tom, let's have a planning meeting, what happens, I never know in your mind what definition you're assigning to the word planning. Because there's 4 different choices. So if I want to make sure it sticks, then I might want to say, Tom, this is going to be a implementation tactical plan. Now you know we're doing some systems work. Tom, this is going to be a financial plan. Now you know we're looking on spreadsheets. Tom, we're going to look at how to grow your company with employees. Now you know it's a people plan. We need to hire the right talent. It's not operational. It's not financial, but it is an org chart. And we better fill the slots in order to upgrade the amount of customers you can take. And then finally, we need to do a 3 to 5 year strategic plan, which is a
visionary
plan. Yeah. Now notice how your brain lit up like that. And that's because that's the definition that's most familiar to you. And I purposely saved it to the end so that your body would physiologically go up. When a politician knows where those buttons are and crafting a well-rounded message, they move 5, 10, 15% up in the polls because they know how to recapture the vision.
And that's what we keep talking about is I mean, you right now have pointed out how Elizabeth Warren is now able to focus more on vision, and that's good. That's going to help her do her credit.
We're good, yeah.
But we've already, we've laid out some things in this podcast and past episodes, like, when is somebody going to talk about this? When are they going to talk about that? And it's like serving it up to them on a silver platter to set the vision.
Right.
And if they would just do it, they would jump ahead in the polls and everybody else would be catching up, playing catch up, being me too.
Catching up, being me too. One of the biggest turns that happened in the McCain Obama was when Obama just turned it back. Listen, we've got to get back to Afghanistan. That's where the war started. We need to get back there. And meanwhile, we were in the Iraq quagmire that we were in at that time, and everybody was fighting about how to do Iraq, because we were in a landmined IUD, kids getting killed, soldiers getting killed by just driving down a road in Iraq.
Right.
And he pivoted the narrative back to Afghanistan, and the Republicans never caught back up. And then as soon as he started moving there and all the debt stuff, all the housing crisis, he was the first one to say, it looks like it's going to take $700 billion to get this done. I think $700 billion is where we need to start with this. He set the vision, and they were going like, and all of them knew it was $1 trillion, by the way, but no one wanted to message $1 trillion.
Yeah, well, and they also, if they challenge that, they're arguing facts, and they're not visionaries, and they're not looking like they're going to solve the problem, and they lose.
They lose because all of a sudden they're trying to prove that they know more. I mean, basically you took an unknown person and you set them next to a decorated war hero, John McCain, and he didn't have a shot. McCain didn't have a shot because he wouldn't be able to follow that or set a vision as compelling. One of the things that Trump gets away with is he sets a compelling vision. It's dark and it has limitations to it. And it's very much the way many 15-year-olds talk. But it's not helpful to say that.
Well, he sets a vision and he takes it back, injecting uncertainty, saying, well, we'll see what happens. I mean, that's like such a cliche statement of his. We'll see what happens.
See what happens. Yes. Yeah.
So annoyingly vague.
and it causes the listener to feel hesitant, nervous, scared. It actually causes them to trust him. Let me say it one more time. It causes them to trust him by him being vague, because he's projecting that he has a handle about what the answer is. But meanwhile, he actually doesn't have an answer other than make people do things at the expense of systems, at the expense of all kinds of challenges. Respect for the nation, world relationships. There's certain marketplaces that we won't get back for 10, 15, 20 years because those relationships were burned based on a policy that was thought up of as, problematic. And it's like, nope, that's not what happened.
Can uncertainty be used as a tool going back the other way? Like if whatever candidate eventually ends up debating President Trump and he's setting this, he's setting these dark visions. He's trying to inject the uncertainty to make people trust him. Can you flip that and get him trapped in an uncertainty that people would be afraid that he has no vision or has the wrong vision or doesn't know what he's doing?
Yeah, say this back. Say this back to me. Say, you know what? We have a new health care plan that's going to be much better. We weren't able to pass the other one, but now I think this newer one that we have is really going to work. Just say that back to me.
Oh, all right. That was long, but okay. So, we weren't able to make the old health plan work, but we have this new vision. We have this new health plan, and now we're going to be able to make that work.
Wow. It sounds like the president is feeling confident in the new plan that he has for healthcare. And gosh, I feel curious, and I really feel interested to hear how that new healthcare plan would work and compare to the other plans that are currently out there, and even in comparison to what we currently have in place. Gosh, you know what? A part of me feels really excited to see the plan that he has, and hopefully before the election, he'll have that plan available. But if he really doesn't have a plan, gosh, I feel doubtful and skeptical he can lead if he doesn't have a plan. But I'd be interested in debating his plan when I see it.
That's very interesting. That now, I love that. Now, what he would typically tend to do is try to gloss it over and saying, oh, believe me, we're going to have the best plan. You're going to have the best health insurance.
I am so excited about the president's enthusiasm about the best plan that he's going to have for us. Gosh, I am really curious about the details about the best plan that he's giving us, and that he's talking about in this moment during the debate. A part of me feels doubtful and skeptical, but you know what? Maybe he has found some talented people in the healthcare industry that could support him with this wonderful plan he's talking about at this moment.
Wow. And what you, the opposing candidate, have just done is illuminated to everybody listening or watching that he really has no plan without saying he doesn't have a plan.
Yeah.
You've injected all kinds of doubt and skepticism into his plan.
Yes.
Or lack of.
Without saying you're a liar and you're full of crap. You don't have to tell you.
So skillful.
Never call a person a liar.
So skillful.
He's enthusiastic about it. He's a president. He gets to sell any way he wants. The only challenge is I'm going to put a spotlight on it, and I want to take his enthusiasm, and I want to use his enthusiasm about the imaginary thing he has, and put a spotlight on how wonderful the enthusiastic child is that he has something in his head about something that's going to be great in the future. Okay? That's going to be great. I'm interested in that. I'm interested in seeing that.
Now, I can see a parallel between this example that you're giving.
Yes.
And I could see an opposing candidate, the Democratic candidate, kind of trying to draw a parallel between the president not delivering on an actual plan for healthcare and the fact that he has said for years, oh, I'd love to give my tax returns. I'd love to share them with you, but I'm under audit.
Say the audit is preventing me from doing it.
Yeah, I'd love to release my taxes, but I'm under audit, so I can't do it until the audit's done.
Oh, so you really would like, and your attorneys say that don't do it because the audit's there, and you'd really like to really meet the need for privacy while the audit is being done, and privacy is more important than disclosure at this moment. Is that correct?
Well, I can't do it. I can't do it because it's under audit.
Oh, sounds like you feel helpless, and you're really going to give your power over to somebody else. Is that correct?
I guess I don't know how to answer that, but yeah. Do you expect him to say yes? He would be tripping and trying to probably repeat the same thing he said before.
That's correct. And all of a sudden he's going like, well, it sounds like that you're not able to lead and you're not able to get something to move forward because you might not like the level of truth that comes from the disclosure. And it sounds like if the attorneys are telling you not to do it, it sounds like you're giving more power to the attorneys. When you're in leadership, are you going to take responsibility or are you just going to make it somebody else's? Is that the way you're going to do leadership? Because I'm not sure. Are you going to give power over to, and his respect will go like, no, I make the decision. Oh, okay, well, which one is it? Are you going to give your power over to attorneys or the power over to the IRS? Or are you going to take the need for truth and lead and take your lumps with truth? Which one are you going to do?
That would be so brilliant because it makes him look weak.
He makes himself look weak.
Yes.
It shows the false binds he puts himself in. And because he does this all the time, he tweets one way, he tweets another way, he tweets one way, he tweets another way. So what we're doing, Tom, is we're not trying to expose a flawed human being. What we're doing here on our podcast is how does language used to hijack or purchase truth and teach people how to get awareness about it. I just want a healthier adult conversation like you do, right?
Right. I mean, to me, that's the refreshing part of this, because I have to say the last episode and this one, start to get a little disheartening at times. You feel like, oh my gosh, we are in a really bad way in this country in many ways, with our dialogue and with how truth is getting purchased. And like we said, the goalpost keeps getting moved to a new level of acceptability or a new normal, whatever it is. I worry there's so many, stretching of the truth, complete assaulting of the truth, falsehoods, whatever you want to call them, being put out there on a daily basis that the average American doesn't even know where truth really exists. And so what I like about what we're saying today is there is a way language can be used to purchase truth back or to prevent truth from being purchased.
That's correct. That's the way to think
And to
about
me,
it.
that's the light at the end of the tunnel
It is.
that we all should be striving for a healthier dialogue.
That's right. We all know that we need to manage change. We need to manage change in immigration. We need to manage change in infrastructure. We need to manage change in healthcare. As soon as we move healthcare to something that is more affordable and more effective and more healthy, or health care rather than sickness care,
Right.
as soon as we move it to more healthy, what we're going to be doing is stabilizing a large part of the country, about 1/6 of the economy. That's a good thing, because as soon as you stabilize health, stress goes down and health improves, because you've just stabilized healthcare, because it became, well, let me say it again, stabilized. And therefore there's not stress, because the need for stability and trust and certainty will be met. If you would like more trust and more certainty, there will be a layer of other insurance companies that will insure you above and beyond the current stability piece. If you want a higher level of care, there's plenty of people to sell that. Just look at any luxury vehicle. The luxury vehicle, there's plenty of people that can afford a Lamborghini in healthcare. Guess what? That's what the Lamborghini salesperson sells. They don't charge the price of a Lamborghini to the delivery of a used car on a lot to the delivery system and say it's this high price for this modest value.
Right.
And that's the current healthcare system. See how it's framed differently now?
Yes.
It's like there's plenty of people, the rich people are going to spend money on their healthcare system. They do not need the healthcare system, because they have the money to buy and travel to any healthcare person on the planet.
Right.
Guess what? Holy crap. Well, then, what are we really talking about here is meeting the need for stability and certainty. And here's what the way Trump hijacks that. Boy, if they get in touch with it, you're going to lose this. They're going to take away your healthcare system. That's not what's happening.
Right. Well, and the other thing they do is to say, well, government's going to take control of it. And you know how bad that is. Do you want your government telling you what doctor you can see? They try to spin that. And then I found it very interesting on the most recent Real Time with Bill Maher that I think it was actually not on the show, but I think it was after on the overtime on YouTube or whatever that
yes.
There, who was it? Michael Moore was on it. There were a bunch of people on it. And they said, yeah, we don't want the government in charge of healthcare the way they are the police department and the fire department and what were the other ones they said? Oh, and the military and other things. I mean, it was basically illuminating how the government is in charge of many aspects of our society. And it's necessary, and they do a pretty good job, and they make sure that everybody gets protection from the police or the FBI or whatever, and not just those that can afford it.
That's right.
So I mean, again, talk about perspective and looking at things differently. So they demonize it, make it like, oh, the government is bad. Well, aren't you trying to be the leader of the government?
Well, that's part of it too, right?
Oh my goodness!
The government, so that the government, whatever. But I'm really glad that that we're doing this dialogue, because when we look at truth and purchasing truth and the things that the candidates that are starting to narrow into the field, Joe Biden needs to know how to communicate better. Elizabeth Warren needs to improve. Bernie Sanders needs to improve their messaging. They also need to have those comebacks that are going to, and those statements that are going to add to the cultivation of trust, and add to the cultivation of, you know what, I can trust this because I'm getting more truth and more clarity from this person than I am getting the truth and the clarity. One of the candidates, and even Kamala Harris or Cory Booker, can start saying, we really need stability in our leadership to show up in a new way. It doesn't seem like we're getting the kind of stability that we would like. It seems like it's not as stable as we'd like it to be, and literally can run on the line of stability.
Oh, I agree.
And they have no comeback. No, we're stable. It's like, no, you're not. You're
not stable. Look, there's another school shooting every day in this country. If you were stable, you would be doing something on background checks or whatever. They could take that a number of ways.
Does stable leadership look like non-action? I don't think that looks like stable leadership.
That's how you go after Mitch McConnell too.
That's correct. Does stable leadership, does progress look like no discussion? Does that look like progress? I think we need to grow as a nation. Is that helpful to get progress by not talking or making decisions? Because currently we're not talking or making decisions, and people are thinking that that's going to be okay.
You're reminding me of another recent interview I saw with Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor. Right. And she made an interesting, very interesting comment that illuminated a fact about, it was because she was asked, hey, do you think there should be cameras in the Supreme Court and like video cameras and all that should be televised? She said, absolutely not. And she pointed out how before there were TV cameras allowed on the floor of Senate and Congress, or the Senate and the House, that all of the members of the Senate, for instance, would be in the room for when other people talked, and there would be more engagement and dialogue and debate. And because it's all on C-SPAN, when one person talks, none of the other of them are in the room. And that the whole camera system, our modern technology, has changed this so that when anybody speaks on the Senate floor, the vast majority of the time, no one's really there to hear it. None of the other senators are there. There is much less communication, dialogue, engagement between the individual representatives in government because of the cameras in the room now. And wow, was that illuminating to me.
Oh, that's huge. Oh, yeah, because you know what? They can't build a community, and they can't appreciate each other, and they can't actually build a collaboration anymore, and that caused them to isolate more. Let's pick up our next podcast on that. How truth gets lost in if without community, you can't have truth.
I'd love that. I'd love to take a deeper dive on that one, Bill. Let's do that.
Okay, that's a good one, Tom. So once you lose community, you start to lose truth. I mean,
yes,
and that's called a workplace community, by the way, Tom. And even though you and I are doing this technology remotely, because we're really interested in meeting each other's needs for understanding and learning, the vibration is high and it's transcending the technology. But if you have technology and you're not pursuing a common narrative like you and I are pursuing, the vibration will drop, and then the loss of the relationship will separate, and that'll make it worse. So,
wow, I'd love to talk about that more. I'd also like to see, when we talk about modern technology, if the role that Twitter maybe is playing, or other social media or other technologies are playing in this loss of community. I think that'd be a great episode.
I agree. So, all right. Well, more to come on this, Tom, and looking forward to our next thing on truth in the community dynamic, because it's so valuable.
All right. Thanks, Bill. Until then.
Take care. All right, bye.
Thank you for listening to this Purchasing Truth podcast. We trust that you have enjoyed this engaging and thought-provoking conversation. Our hope is that you've received value, found clarity, and broadened your truth perspective in this episode. If you did, leave us a review or visit our website, purchasingtruth.com. Join us again for another informative and content-rich discussion here at the Purchasing Truth Podcast. Don't just accept whatever information comes your way. Join the discussion. Discover your own voice. Purchase your own truth.